Big lib. Damn, who's this guy? He's spitting. Okay, stop. So what's his face? I shouldn't say that, but some more news. Friend of the show actually did a long and pretty comprehensive take on MLK's background being whitewashed, and I think I think it could be pretty good to watch. I usually don't watch his videos on stream.
To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
But this is pretty good. It'll compile a lot of this stuff.
Happy birthday to ya. Hey, here's some news. We've got some birthdays to celebrate today. You know how we always start the episodes with birthday announcements?
Here, okay, Lennon has a fire quote for everything, okay? Yes, I know. The man wrote, and he wrote really well. Here is what he said, okay? He talked about when revolutionaries die and their attitudes are whitewashed. During the lifetime of great revolutionaries, the oppressing classes constantly hounded them, received their theories with the most savage malice, the most furious hatred, and the most unscrupulous campaigns of lies and slander, just like MLK. After their deaths, attempts are made to convert them into harmless icons, to canonize them, so to say, and to hallow their names to a certain extent for the consolation of the oppressed classes, and with the object of duping the latter, while at the same time robbing the revolutionary theory of its substance, blunting its revolutionary edge, and vulgarizing it. Okay? Today, the bourgeoisie and the opportunists within the labor movement concur in this doctoring of Marxism. He's talking about revisionists. All the social chauvinists are now Marxists. And they push to the foreground and extol what is and what or seems acceptable to the bourgeoisie. All the social chauvinists are now Marxists, don't laugh. And more frequently, German bourgeois scholars, only yesterday specialists in the annihilation of Marxism, are now speaking of the national German Marx, who, they claim, educated the labor unions which are so splendidly organized for the purpose of waging a predatory war. Who is this Lenin guy? He seems to be spitting. The latter of that quote is interesting. The latter of that quote is the social democratic movement historically and even at that time working to undermine actual communist and actual socialist organization in Germany. That's what that is. That's what that is about. He's saying that because SOCDEMs were able to in Germany in German politics actually reach by way of trade unions and by way of union organizing and as a basically a fucking countermeasure to like actual robust and oftentimes maybe even violent communist revolutionaries was given a bone. So the German Social Democrats were seen as the German Social Democratic movement was seen as a successful one, as opposed to the utopian goals and that are often violent of the communist movement and the Communist Party. That's why you hear a lot of people here say, even to this day, a lot of neoliberals will turn around and be like, the Social Democratic movement, which completely handicapped and made themselves and basically busied themselves with like fighting other leftists or actual fucking communists straight up, and even led to the assassination of Luxembourg. Those guys were not ultimately helping the Nazis with their action and their behaviors, and it was actually the communist fault. It's the endless shit slinging. It's very stupid, and I don't really care.
Wipe.
The e-scooter apocalypse? No, I'm not gonna do that. Did Marx or Lenin say anything about Funko Pops? Yeah, they love Funko Pops.
You've all seen this. You all know we do this. So, a very happy birthday to National Treasure Betty White, who turns 100 years.
MLK had some Marxist vibes, yes, but I don't think he wanted that tag. I think his Marxism was more coming from the Christian basis. First of all, there is such a thing as ecumenical Marxists. But also, I wonder why MLK did not want to say he was a communist or a Marxist at a time when, like, that was literally a slur akin to his black identity. Like, you're talking about a time when America, during Red Scare, was already fucking locking up, jailing communists. You know, the real cancel culture.
Young today. What? Happy birthday to funny man Jim Carrey. Smoking. Somebody stop me. Life is like a box of chocolates.
Okay, come on.
On the third Monday of each year, we rightfully celebrate the life and legacy of the civil rights leader who utilized nonviolent protests to help bring about an end to explicit legal segregation in America, and pressured this nation to enshrine voting rights for its black citizens. Also, pretty good mustache. Like a 7 out of 10 on the mustache scale. And so, of course, we celebrate this day with a variety of store sales. A day off unless you're working at one of those stores or really any service job. And of course, the ritual of witnessing conservatives cynically appropriating MLK's message to promote their right-wing reactionary agenda.
It's called the MLK Dream Score, which would grade political candidates based on their adherence to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. So Obama would get a low score because although he was cool, his policies left blacks cold. Biden would get scored 0 for excusing physical violence at protests, creating polarization by branding people as racist, and having no interest in a, quote, beautiful...
Wait, I mean, Biden, he's not wrong. Like, they would be scored 0, but not because, like, he excused violence at protests, dude. What the fuck? Homie said blacks, by the way, with a hard B. Okay.
Full symphony of brotherhood. You can say that about everyone, from Jesse Jackson to the Squad. Compare that to Trump. His policies were more helpful to blacks than any modern era president.
Today is the anniversary of the assassination of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. I was thinking, like, if he were alive today, I wonder what he'd think about such dismissive comments and about a Democrat Party that believes it can regain power.
Dude, they're such fucking demons, dude. These are the exact same people disseminating the exact same sentiment that led to MLK's popularity being like fucking 20% approval rating at the time of his assassination, okay? It's so fucking crazy that they can spread this rhetoric in the most disingenuous capacity.
By living in a constant state of protest or racial hatred and denial.
Every one of us has a right to equal treatment by our government. That right is guaranteed by our Constitution. It's the heart of countless laws passed with well-deserved fanfare by our Congress over many decades. That right is inscribed on a monument on our National Mall to the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who would be shocked and disgusted if he watched Susan Rice on television today. Well, going forward, she announced this afternoon, quote, every agency in the U.S. government, a government that is, by the way, the largest and most lavishly funded organization in human history, every one of them will, quote, place equity at the core of its policy design, specifically and for the benefit of, quote, marginalized communities. Now, Susan Rice's speech was carried live by many news outlets, but as far as we know, not a single one of them paused to ask what exactly she was talking about.
Now, in Vermont, they are saying that you need to be a person of color, or you don't get to get in that line. How do you react to that?
Well, you know, this whole identity politics stuff is poisonous. You know, if Dr. Martin Luther King were here today, he would be absolutely offended. You know, he wanted people to be judged by the character and not by the color of their skin.
Okay, pause it! Sorry to interrupt this proud American tradition, but I have to. Quick recap. So apparently, Donald Trump is the modern-day embodiment of Dr. King's philosophy. MLK would have hated protests for racial justice, and would have been shocked and disgusted and I guess confused by the very notion of equity. And of course, he would have been absolutely offended by...
Yeah, you know, he totally just like definitely did not lead a movement for that very specific purpose, which is pretty funny. Piker's a fork biter? Okay, dude, come on.
The idea that a vaccine rollout would prioritize communities that disproportionately suffer from the negative health consequences of a novel virus. You know, silly consequences like hospitalization and death. Yes, I'm sure the man who stated that, quote, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and inhuman, would be absolutely offended by the very idea that a state government might prioritize life-saving vaccines for the most vulnerable populations, particularly the Black community, who it turns out are at much greater risk of catching COVID due to the fact that they are less likely to be able to work from home, more likely to live in multi-generational households, more likely to rely on public transportation, and then on top of that, disproportionately suffer from comorbidities such as diabetes and heart disease and have less access to quality health care, which puts them at much greater risk of dying from COVID, you know, because of that pesky long and enduring legacy of racism in this country. Anyway, happy MLK Day, a holiday that comes with just as much accurate historical context as Columbus Day and Thanksgiving, because we live in America, you see, surely, you see. You know, I kind of feel like MLK would be more absolutely offended by the fact that over 50 years after his death, also known as an assassination, the same health disparities that existed in the 1960s continue to exist in the Black community to this day. That day being January 17th, 2022. A year we once assumed would have flying cars and robot sports. Where's my damn cyberball? But instead have many of the same tragic inequities from back when computers were the size of living rooms and films were tackling the controversy of interracial marriage. Right, Sidney Poitier died too. That sucks. But hey, at least we solved the interracial marriage stuff. No? Still struggling with that too, huh? Okay, well.
Fun fact, the state of Virginia only after a lawsuit, I believe this past year or a year prior, 2 years ago, finally abolished their racial categorization system for miscegenation. Yeah. For the record.
Well, again, America. But I'm getting sidetracked.
For those of you who don't understand what I'm saying, in the state of Virginia, if you were to get married to someone outside of your race, there was a categorization system that wrote specifically what your miscegenation looked like what your race mixing looked like, with very outdated racial categories. Hold on.
To you.
And I'm not talking about the Loving case. Hold on. No, I'm not talking about the Loving case. Not the famous love. Obviously, I'm not talking about the famous one. I am talking about.
Stuck inside due to an ice storm. Appreciate you getting me through this time with brain rot.
I'm not going to read them, but. Hold on. All right, well, let's keep going. I'll find this in a second.
We haven't yet finished our MLK Day tradition. Are there any other right-wing abominations
I have to pee. I'll be back in a second.
About what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood for?
There are literally colleges that are teaching kids that if they say, I am colorblind, this is an element of racism. If you say, I don't judge people based on color, this is a microaggression. I am not kidding. This is something that is said at universities across the land. That is a direct rejection of Dr. King's dream. So what is the left doing? They're saying, well, really, Dr. King's dream wasn't the colorblind society. That was just a bunch of sloganeering for the cameras. What his dream really was racial separatism and competing interest groups. His real dream was the Bernie Sanders socialist agenda that would overcome race with redistributionism. He was really a class warrior rather than a warrior in favor of racial integration. This is not why America celebrates Dr. Martin Luther King. And to pretend otherwise is, I think, a bit of nasty revisionist history that has some pretty serious consequences for the future of the country.
That's right, my fellow US of A-holes. According to expert on black history Ben Shapiro, MLK was explicitly against redistributionism. He wasn't a class warrior, you see, and what he really wanted was a colorblind society. And to claim otherwise puts the entire country at risk. Thanks for piping up, race expert Ben. Specifically, and coincidentally, MLK apparently wanted the kind of society and public policy proposals that Ben Shababadook envisions.
The thing I will never understand is why people always say, oh, here it is. This is what, yeah, couples in Virginia can marry without disclosing their race. Finally. Guys, we did it. The Attorney General said denying a marriage license for a couple's refusal to disclose their race poses serious constitutional questions. And now the new forms actually have a decline to answer option. A lawsuit filed by 3 couples in Virginia has led to a statewide directive from the Attorney General. No one applying for a marriage license in the state should be forced to declare his or her race. This was in 2019, by the way.
Have you peeked Shababo?
Yeah, this is where we learned the new like racism weebs actually have different terminology.
Ben Shababori.
Like this. One couple, Sophie Rogers and Brandon Churchill, were presented with a list of outdated or offensive terms to choose from, such as Aryan, Gypsy, Occidental. I don't even know what Jackson White means.
Hassle.
Mohammedan, Muslim, when they applied earlier this month. And also quadroon as well, which means a quarter black. Yes. Mohammedan? What the fuck? So.
15 months bog. Thanks for the brain rot and Ray Grahams.
Let's continue.
Wow, how lucky for Ben. Only wait! Perhaps this Ben Shapipu fellow isn't right after all, and we'll get to that. But our special angry boy is at least right about one thing. Broadly speaking, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is not celebrated in this country for his promotion of wealth redistribution. But perhaps he should be, because wealth redistribution is absolutely something that he advocated for. In fact, there are a whole bunch of things that MLK believed in and fought for that he is not celebrated for today. But maybe, possibly, definitely should be. And yet, considering how frequently and consistently and mercilessly conservatives invoke Dr. Martin Luther King to justify their agenda, you could be forgiven for believing that he was a free market-loving libertarian. At least forgiven a little bit? Just a bitty? Or not? It's up to you. It's a free country. If you don't count, like, healthcare and water and food. Also, the color of your skin and household income matters. Like a lot, it turns out. Anyway, the point is that despite the fact that we treat Martin Luther King Jr. like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or the Noid, a mythical figure who ended racism with a single sentence about dreams, the truth is that MLK was a real person who said a lot of things and also did a lot of things. And heck, even wrote a bunch of things down. And if you actually look at the things he said and did and wrote, quote, during his too short life, you will find that he was far more extreme than the conventional wisdom would have you believe.
Dude, just the things that he said that actually led to the New York Times op-ed board writing an anti-MLK piece. The things that he said on Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese liberation alone would put him in contemporary terms at odds with, obviously, the American State Department and their imperialist interests, as it did back then, and also would cause every fucking white neoliberal on the internet to say he's a tanky and to say he's like, unacceptable, and that like all of his work is actually, bad because he's anti, he is like pro Vietnam, pro North Vietnamese liberation, and he's a communist.
By any measure, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a radical leftist, and this is why the right-wing appropriation of MLK is so reprehensible.
You will call MLK Crusty for sure? You are such a fucking idiot, dude. Like, people saying that I would be in opposition to things that MLK believes or are right now are so fucking stupid. Okay? He was not an anarchist. And it doesn't even matter. Because the things that he talks about, I agree with now, even when most people still don't. So I don't know why you're saying this. Like, most people still to this day either have completely fucking memory hold his attitude towards Ho Chi Minh or are completely oblivious to it. And that kind of attitude, when discussed in public, is still one that draws a lot of ire from the average American. Dr. King in the War, his opposition to the U.S. role in Vietnam, said to herd position as rights leaders.
14 months of being radicalized. Purgatorium.
Oh, it's just fucking so annoying. Anyway. Dude, I don't know who this person is, but
internalized.
Can I make you a hog with VFX? All you need to do is get your face away from the mic. Why did you give me a timeout? I'm not lying. Anyways, I'm sorry. I have ASD and I'm not good at making friends. I'm sorry. I guess I only wanted your recognition. Bro, people need to... Dude, chill out, dude, okay? Just step away from the fucking keyboard, okay? Please. For your own good.
Hi, Hassie, I have 100
because,
points. Will you
it's
let
a
me
lie.
ban a chub
Specifically,
please?
It's a lie that they are desperate to propagate. After all, the actual principles and policies that MLK believed in and fought for are completely at odds with conservative ideology. This beloved and vindicated historical figure just so happened to promote ideology that would set the GOP firmly on the wrong side of history. It seems damning. The kind of thing you might have to do a bunch of weird lies about if you're the conservative type. Now, you might have noticed that all these clips that I've shown you of right-wingers invoking MLK have centered around a single speech of his, but even more specifically, a single line from that speech.
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Boy, conservatives absolutely love this one single line. They sop it up like a delicious bread, gnawing and swallowing and shitting out distorted husks like the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars. Here is Congressman Jim Jordan tweeting, "We honor the life and work of Dr. King and his belief that it's the content of an individual's character that matters most." Weird thing for a guy who allegedly ignored/covered up the sexual abuse of student athletes during his time as an assistant wrestling coach at The Ohio State University to say, but sure. Honestly, Jim, maybe not a great move promoting the idea that people should be judged by the content of their character. Doesn't seem like that version of the world would work out for you, what with all the stuff I literally just said. But anyway.
I do love when conservatives say that, because it's like, no, we are judging you by the content of your character, or rather, lack thereof. You know, your character sucks, dog. Is not the color of your skin, I promise. Like, you think it is the color of your skin, but it's not. It's just like your attitude, the things that you've done. You're a bad person. That's why we don't like you. I'm judging you because of the content of your character. You have no character. You have no morality. You're a bad person through and through.
Way. And yet, conservatives absolutely love invoking the legacy of MLK against current movements for racial justice. Here is former Congressman Joe Walsh tweeting, "In fact, if he were alive today, Martin Luther King Jr. would lead an All Lives Matter march on Washington, D.C. Would be..."
The funniest part about this is that, like, they did that, okay? They actually did that. During the civil rights movement, conservatives did do this. So there is already an example of this. Okay? This idea that, like, MLK would be leading the counter-reactionary made-up fucking movement that came out as a reaction to Black Lives Matter is a laughable one, because we already have the historic example of that. White power is quite literally the historic example of all lives matter against Black Lives Matter. Black power was the name of the game. White power was created as a reaction to that, to do white identitarian politics. So, we already know where MLK was on that fucking spectrum, on that equation. They called him a communist race mixer.
Wonderful. Yikes and fuck. Yuck, if you will. That sure is a dipshit tweet right there. Imagine using MLK
they also,
to justify...
Hey, by the way, remember when they also did call him violent? Back then as well. I plan to lead another non-violent march tomorrow. And those marches were violent because of state violence. Again. So, just a reminder. Fuck you, I thought you were nice. Fuck everyone, I just wanted to be recognized, and now everyone's calling me a shithead. Fuck you. Dude, I said stop tweeting. Stop writing in the chat. It's going to be bad for you, okay? Please, I'm not talking to you direct. I'm just going to ban you, okay? I'm sorry. This is for your own good, okay? I recognized you. You can do the VFX thing if you want, but you have to chill, dude. You're like... You're... Just, you know... Cool off a little bit. And chatter, stop making fun of this person, okay? You guys are being so weird. You're literally just like him or her or them, okay? You are just as needy as that person, and oftentimes have the exact same kind of neurodivergence that that person just openly admitted they have. So for you to then turn around and fucking shit on him and bully him is pretty weird, okay? Anyway. I don't like when you guys do that.
dismissal of the Black Lives Matter movement. Really imagine the doublespeak dystopian brain at work to try and argue that America's most famous civil rights leader would definitely be against a modern civil rights movement like that. That's like saying Nikola Tesla wouldn't be into EDM festivals. Like, yeah, I guess we don't know for sure, but come the hell on. And yet old Walshy isn't by far the highest profile dildo making this argument.
One thing protesters would like to hear is leaders say Black Lives Matter. You won't say that. Why?
All my life, I've been inspired by the example of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Ah, yes, former talk radio host and Vice President Mike Pence. I'm sure Martin Luther King would have hated the phrase Black Lives Matter.
Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black. It's always something degrading and low and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, and clean. But I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful.
Wow, he's so racist, dude. Notice how racist he was, that he was singling out black people and saying that he's proud of being black. Why can't white people say that about being white? Oh, wait. That argument that I just conducted is exactly the same thing that people are saying now with All Lives Matter, and that's precisely what they said back then. That is exactly at the heart of the fucking white power movement. That is exactly what they did back then, and they're still doing it. The only difference is that they've gotten better at propagandizing in a more inclusive capacity, and the only reason why they can propagandize, they have to propagandize with a more inclusive capacity and say all lives matter instead of like white lives matter, for example, is because we are living in the post-civil rights movement era. Okay, so there was at least some level of success within the civil rights movement, and that is the reason why it has to be more insidious. The racist, agitated propaganda has to be more insidious and has to be hidden.
Jeez, Marty, did you not hear what Joe Walsh and Mike Pence said? Not very colorblind of you to say that black is beautiful. Did you ever consider the idea that all skin colors are beautiful? God damn, do these conservatives love quoting this one line? It's like a rite of passage for them. They think of it like a magic spell they can use to minimize any and all prominence of racism in America. It is the I have a black friend of political sentiment.
Because if America was a racist country, like some people say that it is, Arbery's killers would not have been found guilty by a nearly all-white jury in Georgia. Now, most Americans, people of all races, truly believe in and are inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King's.
Dude, I fucking hate Tulsi Gabbard so much. And every single one of those Tulsi simps that are delusional and brain dead, they quietly admitted that she was bad. Some of them did. Some of them still advocate for her. Some of them quietly admitted that she was bad and just moved on to the next fucking annoying little shit stain like fractionalist reactionary grifter content that they can advocate for. It's so annoying.
Adage that we are all God's children, and as such we should judge each other based on the content of our character, not the color of our skin.
Forget the fact that it took more than 2 months for Ahmaud Arbery's killers to be arrested, and it took a fucking video of the incident going viral to prompt their arrest, because, you know, the prosecutor was allegedly using her position to discourage arrests in the case. Great example of how our justice system is totally not racist. And yes, I'm calling future vice presidential candidate Tulsi 2024 Gabbard a conservative, but only because she is. Come at me, Tulsi heads! But like, not really. All right, keep your distance, please. I'm a nice man. And, it's pretty ironic, don't you think, that she quoted MLK to make the argument that America is not a racist country, and that most people of all races in America aren't racist, when King himself stated, "I am sorry to have to say that the vast majority of white Americans are racist, either consciously or unconsciously." But news, dude, you call out. That was way a long time ago. So much has changed since then. First of all, stop yelling. I can't hear you. We filmed this episode last week. Duh. Second of all, has it though? Has it? Has so much changed since then? So, we'll get back to that question. But for now, we need to finish talking about the one line that conservatives actually like. Except actually, we need to do ads before that, so we will do the ads, then the speech stuff, then the stuff about how America is still racist, in that order. But let's face it, I'll probably have a lot of tangents. Yeah. These dips probably used him to justify the Iraq war for all we know. I mean, that's probably hyperbole. I get carried away some...
Pentagon official, King would support Iraq, Afghan war. Oh, dude, what the fuck? Even I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's incredibly cool. That is like famous anti-imperialist who was roundly criticized by every facet of liberal media and all of our liberal institutions, would have been a supporter of the Iraq and Afghan wars. Oh, that's fucking tight.
Fun fact, that's actually an official under Obama, because fair and balanced TMC, are you ready to rumble? Okay, getting back to the video. And that one line, which is of course a quote from MLK's famous "I Have a Dream" speech, delivered on August 28, 1963, when King was just 34 years old, as part of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And here's an interesting bit of trivia. It turns out that he also said a bunch of other things during this speech. Weird,
oh no.
Right? Things that conservatives, but also politicians in general, don't tend...
Oh no. Oh, dude, what the fuck? When the civil rights battle was on the line, Dr. King wanted the ball in his hands.
Thank you, New York. As we honor the life and times of Dr. King,
oh my God,
difficult moments. When the civil rights battle was on the line, Dr. King wanted the ball in his hand, and he gave his life to ensure that our country would be a better place for all of us. Right now, we want...
I told you, man. That was my best lock of the year, dude. He will never stop. You will never stop this man. He is going to keep... Did someone say shut the fuck up when he said that, by the way?
When the civil rights battle was on the line, Dr. King wanted the ball in his hand, and he gave his life to ensure that our country would be a better place for all of us. Right now...
Yeah, someone literally said, shut the fuck up. Oh my God. Yeah. That's funny. Look, right here.
Right now...
You hear that?
All of us. Right now... Now, we want the ball in our hand again as we deal with COVID, as we deal with crime, as we deal with uncertainty. Let's win this for Team New York and Team America. Let's take the ball and have the final.
I wonder how Eric Adams feels about, the police department that he is a part of, that he now commands as the mayor, playing a role in the assassination of Malcolm X. That's because, that did happen. I would like to hear what he has to say about that. Anyway, he's great at
tend to
memeing.
mention nearly as much.
100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. So we've come to cash this check.
You know what's funny that people haven't done yet, and I don't want to speak this into existence, but I could see conservatives starting to use the N-word again, but not like the soft A or hard R, like, you know, the N-word that is black for Spanish, right? I could see them calling black people that N-word to be like, well, MLK said that. You know what I mean? Yeah, the O one, the O word. Well, MLK used it. Or is it black for Spanish? Spanish for black.
A check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality.
I wonder why they don't like to quote those lines. And for some historical perspective, here's a picture of birthday girl.
It's crazy how racist MLK was right there, by the way. Did you guys notice that? Did you guys notice how crazy racist he was there when he's talking about like police brutality against black people? No, I'm still gonna act like he would be in support of an all lives matter reactionary movement.
Girl Betty White from the same year MLK gave that speech. She is older than me in this picture. Boy, that's actually recent, isn't it? It's like, despite the grainy black and white footage and our inferior dildo technology back then, within the scope of American history, this wasn't actually all that long ago. And yet, at this time, less than 60 years ago, Jim Crow segregation laws were still alive and well, making it legal in many instances to discriminate against someone based solely on the color of their skin. About 40% of the states still had laws against interracial marriage, and in much of the country, black
Democrats be like, by any votes necessary? Yeah, ballot, dude. That's what he held here famously.
black people were, in effect, denied the right to vote. So you can understand why, during this time, one of the main demands of civil rights leaders like MLK would have been a plea to end the era of explicit legal discrimination in America. And one of the primary obstacles to achieving this goal was that many white Americans judged black people by the color of their skin, not by the content of their character, and therefore did not support the end of legal discrimination against black people. The notion that individuals should be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, is something that everyone should agree with. Unless you are a literal Nazi, then you should disagree on account of you being a Nazi and all that. It wouldn't be very consistent if you agreed, you Nazi. Ha, gotcha. What I'm getting at is that at the time, it was extremely necessary for MLK to promote this idea, but not only this idea. And by today's standards, judging someone by the content of their character is a much lower bar, because in theory, of course we need to judge people by their character over the color of their skin. Everyone decent knows this now. It's the type of message we've grown up seeing in 90s sitcoms.
The whole world is messed up right now, and I would like to see that get better, but in order for that to happen, white people are gonna have to start making positive assumptions when they see people of color. And people of color could make positive assumptions when they see white people. Man, things are just messed up.
Wonder what that
dude, I love
show is. Doesn't matter. And boy, to be clear, not saying we like nailed it yet in terms of not judging people by the color of their skin. We still have a lot of work to do in that department. But even so, the process of discussing race needs to evolve and continue past this one line.
I love the concessions that like every black person has to always give when talking about like racism in this country, especially in mainstream media, you know, in like liberal mainstream media, where it's like you can't just be like white people need to stop hating black people. You have to also be like, and black people need to stop getting angry at white people as well. It's like, dude, it literally is completely irrelevant to the conversation. Okay. The one part of that equation, the offending party there, okay, that actually has like significant consequences, material harm that they're able to cause, is the dominant idea of whiteness. It's just like, it doesn't matter. It straight up does not fucking matter.
From one speech that MLK gave. And so still using this as a benchmark is like judging a television based on whether or not it features color. We're just way past that. But this is where conservatives seem to stagnate, and often jujitsu this one line against efforts to achieve better racial equality and pervert its meaning to further their selfish agenda. They twist a concept that promotes interpersonal respect, community harmony, and genuine equality into one that ignores the impact of history, dismisses the legacy of slavery and systemic racism in America, instead promoting myths about meritocracy.
Only whites races exist. That's not what I'm saying. God's loophole, the poop hole loophole. What I'm saying is, and I've said this a million times over, people get really upset about that. Okay, Twitch is gonna fucking ban me for saying this again. You know what I mean? But on the one side, you have people's hurt fifis. On the other side, you have systemic racism. Putting those two in the same exact argument makes it seem like there is any kind of equivalence here, okay? But it's such a false one. And more often than not, it's a cynically applied false equivalence, which leads me to constantly say, that's bullshit, okay? Sure, be nice to white people. Of course. Be nice to everyone, right? But having that conversation about systemic racism makes it seem as though like there is some degree of oppression that white people face because, like, I don't know, victims of systemic racism have deep wounds that they have not been able to heal from, that they are still impacted by, that leads them to feel some type of way about white people. Fucking stupid.
And the ideal of individualism in order to maintain the accumulated privileges and advantages.
But of course,
his real name was
the last thing I will say on this is that, yes, if you are default character Andy, if you are white, you've never really thought about this sort of thing before, and of course, you think systemic racism is people being mean to you, because systemic racism towards white people is not a real thing. So all you have ever experienced as a white person is someone being mean to you individually. And that's precisely why you think that is how it works. Okay? This isn't to say that you should feel shame for being white or anything like that. Shut the fuck up. Obviously not. I'm white. I don't give a shit. Okay? But, you know, it's good to sometimes re-examine society, especially if you have never really thought about it that way. Okay?
Afforded by white supremacy, all in support of enabling the exploitation allowed by our current system of capitalism. You know, like making people work on a federal holiday celebrating a civil rights leader. Hey, speaking of that, fun, extremely ironic trivia for you. It turns out that this holiday was started by this guy. Thank you, Ron. You definitely racist president, you. But at the time of his presidency...
Wow, how can you say Ronald Reagan is racist? He started this holiday.
Reagan was like the Hulk Hogan of racist dog whistling, not to be confused with the real Hulk Hogan, of course. As you probably know, dog whistling is the act of making racist statements or policies while not directly talking about a race. This is often excused after the fact by claiming colorblindness. See, this twisting of the statement that we should judge each other by the content of our character and not by the color of our skin is what's often used to promote this concept of colorblindness. Deployed in a political context, this claim of not seeing race is utilized to obscure the role of history and systems on the life outcomes of groups that have been socially and legally disadvantaged, and instead place the burden of success solely on the individual members of those groups.
So what do you as an individual black person do to change your life? And I don't think it's helpful and in fact, I think it's actually quite hurtful to spend an enormous amount of time talking about the legacy of discrimination and racism instead of talking about what can you do right now to fix your problem.
Ah, yeah! Thanks to Black History Professor Ben Shapiro. Glad you keep showing up. Miss you. Love you. You see, not only is it not...
The funniest part about this is that, like, the hyper-individualistic attitudes that conservatives preached for a very long time are completely meaningless because when it comes to their own in-group, they talk about systemic issues all the fucking time. White people are oppressed. Okay? Ben loves talking about how Western culture, which is superior, is under attack by immigration. Western culture superiority is undermined by immigration, undermined by liberal degeneracy, moral decay. Same things that the Nazis said, by the way, of course. So just a fun little reminder for that. He wrote entire books about that. But ultimately, that's, he loves also talking about systemic problems all the fucking time. Except those are red herrings, and they're not actually real systemic problems. They are completely made up systemic problems. There's no empirical evidence for it. As a matter of fact, the only time Ben talks about social issues is often bastardizing the actual empirical evidence to suggest exactly the opposite thing that Ben Shapiro is saying, but he'll still use it by cherry-picking data points regardless. Like the classic, gay parents are worse for the child's development overall. There is no evidence to suggest that gay parents are worse than straight parents. Okay? As a matter of fact, there's empirical evidence to suggest the exact opposite, that gay parents and straight parents are the same on child's development, on the development of a child, and that it does not matter. But Ben will lie about that all the fucking time. Why? Because he's a homophobe. And then he will turn around and say that it's systemic changes that are ruining your life. Anyway, let's continue.
Helpful to spend an enormous amount of time talking about the legacy of discrimination and racism, but it's actually quite hurtful. It's all up to the individual, apparently. What are you doing right now to fix your problem?
There is a lot of evidence, actually, Law, of what? The only evidence is that lib-hog propaganda, stream TV shows and get banned, Poggies, mouthpiece for propaganda, propaganda machine, why Antifa attacked Capitol on January 6th. This is so... Oh my God, dude, I love that. This dude said Antifa attacked Capitol on January 6th. That's crazy when, like, the Oath Keepers are now considered Antifa. Okay, love to hear what kind of evidence this fucking dickhead has. Lib-hog mouthpiece, there is evidence. There's evidence there's evidence that gay parents are worse parents overall than straight parents. Please explain where you got this evidence from. No, what you are going to state is that single-parent households actually are worse than two-parent households. And the obvious reasons for why that is the case is because we live in a capitalist society. Single-parent households, unfortunately, do not have the same level of disposable income. Single-parent households also do not have the same level of... single-parent households do not have the same amount of free time to be able to divide labor amongst both parents. And that's precisely the reason why single-parent households lead to worse parental outcomes than two-parent households. But that says nothing about gay parents or straight parents. As a matter of fact, evidence suggests, like I said, the exact opposite. You could say there's evidence, but there is no evidence. Oh, man. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence, actually. Lol. Yeah, no evidence whatsoever, but doesn't matter.
This systemic racism against you is like forest fires, you see. Only you can prevent it. This leads to an extremely insidious false dichotomy, which is the idea that focusing on what to do to fix your problem and recognizing the systemic issues that led to the problem are somehow mutually exclusive. Hey, now, why are you griping on and on and on about who pushed you into that hole when you have all the digging out to do? Seems like maybe the thing a person who helped push you into the hole might say, or at least someone who greatly benefited from you getting getting shoved in the hole. Like perhaps if someone made their living implying that it's okay to push people into holes. Now, there is nothing wrong, per se, with the notion of colorblindness. Colorblindness would be fine if the concept of race had never been invented in the first place. And I do mean invented, because race is not real. That is to say, it is not a biological reality, but it was invented. I'm not being abstract here. The concept of race was literally invented. The word itself had only a broad meaning until the 18th century, and it was invented for a very specific reason, namely to prevent
slavery.
Enslaved Africans and European indentured servants from forming coalitions over their shared economic interests in opposition to the wealthy ruling class that was exploiting their labor during the early days of colonization. Not sure who the official inventor of race was, but I'm guessing he had a name like George or Andrew or Fish or Chips. So certain advantages were given to Europeans, and heavy restrictions were enforced for Africans in order to protect the rich and powerful
MLK
elite.
Day.
And to justify this lie, more lies were told about the essential and inherent differences between the races. This social and legal infrastructure provided privileges to individuals that belonged to the newly created social category of whiteness, and shackled, literally, individuals assigned to the made-up, constructed classification of blackness, which you can imagine severely limited the opportunities afforded to them. And so when King said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character," he is challenging the idea that the superficial phenotypic trait denotes anything whatsoever about intrinsic worth. He is challenging the notion that there is something inherently less valuable about black lives.
Let's go.
One might even say, and I will, that he is saying Black Lives Matter. It's also worth noting that he doesn't actually use the phrase colorblind in this.
Here's OAN likening Trump to Jesus. If you have OAN in a cable system, congrats, you pay for this. I love that. These guys are just going buck wild, and I respect it, okay?
This quote, because the problem isn't noticing that an individual has a different skin color. The problem is assigning some kind of fundamental value to this trait. Ultimately, in this speech, and with this single line from this speech, King is describing a vision of racial equality. And so, wouldn't legitimate equality mean that you would try to make up for the unfair disadvantages that have been imposed on a community without justification? Wouldn't failing to do so just fortify that very inequality that has amassed over centuries of unjust treatment? And so the idea that the notion of equality would mean to overlook the accumulated advantages provided to one group and the degrading disadvantages inflicted on another and just say, "On your marks, get set, go," without making up for the fact that one of the groups in the race has been wrongfully stuck on the starting block for centuries.
Okay. One of the greatest, dude, if one more fucking dumbass sends this Timothy Chamath or whatever the fuck his name is about how he doesn't care about the genocide in China, I am going to permanently ban. I am going to make Xinjiang look like a fucking theme park. Okay, in this chat. I do not care at this moment, okay? It is a tab that is open here. We are going to talk about it in a second. You do not care about it either. Shut the fuck up, okay? Holy fuck, dude. You will wish you were under the oppressive thumb of this Chinese surveillance state going to a re-education camp by the time I'm done with you. Be normal! China chatters, be normal, challenge, impossible difficulty! Fuck! Everybody, it's like the biggest news story of the day, dude. It's like, no, it's dumb as fuck. God damn, dude. You know I am an authoritarian leader in this chat. I serve you the fucking ads at the top of the hour. Okay? Doesn't matter. You will see those ads if you whether you like it or not. And the only way to stop seeing those fucking ads at the top of the hour is by subscribing. You no longer want to see them at the top of the hour. If you want an ad-free broadcasting experience, if you want to avoid the ads, and all you need to do is goddamn subscribe, okay? I am the chairman. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky, but if not, you have to make your own luck with $5, or if you don't have $5, for free with a Twitch Prime. Here's the 1-minute ad break now.
Centuries is, and I don't want to sound extreme here, unreasonable. But essentially, people named Ben, and other names too, I guess, are telling black people to ignore the systems that disadvantage them and limit their opportunities and simply pull themselves up by their bootstraps. This philosophy is used to prevent any disruption to the status quo, which of course has historically benefited white people. But hey, don't take my word for it.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
Okay, Marty, that's all well and good, but what do you want to do about it, huh? Some kind of bootstraps pulling machine? Robots that create more land? Oh! Maybe the robots can also learn to pull up bootstraps and we cover all of our angles at once!
Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
Ah, that makes sense. Much better plan. So Martin Luther King 1, Ben Shapiro 0. Hey, that rhymes! You know, it's funny. It kind of sounds like MLK was talking about reparations in that clip. Weird. And some of the things he was saying kind of sound like the sort of history that conservatives are currently trying to ban from schools, and in some cases succeeding. Gee, I wonder what...
I love when conservatives say that, like, censorship is a liberal attitude. They love censorship. Liberals are censoring all the time. And then in the same breath be like, we need to censor every book we can that even speaks about black experiences. I've said this time and time again. Do not be duped, ladies and gentlemen, NBs. When Republicans cry about liberal censorship, they're just using that as a vehicle to further spread propaganda. The reality is that the #1 censored banned books are still LGBT-related books, which they consider to be, moral decay. Pro tips, Pepela. Oh, God, what the fuck? As the left always do, so... You literally have no clue what you're talking about. Fuck off. Ethan is the biggest grifter, 180 on politics for money. I don't know why these people keep trying to survive. Like, it is very obvious that life is pain for you, dude. Like, it's obvious. You know? It's just like, here, I'll let you stay in here for a little bit longer, okay? Just kidding, get fucked. So pathetic, dude. Listen. It's not sad how pathetic people are. Those people are so pathetic that I don't feel bad about how horrifying their existence is. Like, a person that still considers themselves to be like a terminally online far-right person, you know what I mean? Person who, like, still watches like Sargon of Akkad. Like that dude is literally like one fucking bad day away from just, you know, shutting everything down, okay? Ending it all. Like Ethan who? That N-word guy? Yeah, dude, that's who we're talking about. Most famous for saying the N-word.
I went to the synagogue that was
like your life is horrible, dude. It's so sad. It's so fucking horrible.
During the crisis. You have also helped me become more nuanced about such situations. Thank you.
Anyway, these people are clearly underage since they've spent enough time to make an account and spent time pissing streamers off. Clearly shows they have enough time to not work, therefore. Okay, so what I was gonna say is like so many people, so many fucking people love saying the left is actually the censorious ones. The left is actually the censorious ones while simultaneously fucking doing censorship. Okay? That is what you're doing. Everyone does it. That's my point. My point is everyone does it. The left does it. The right does it. It's about who you're doing it towards, why you're doing it, and the whole like, oh, they love fucking pulling. They love pulling like old fucking quotes of people who have changed from their prior attitudes and being like, nope, doesn't matter. You said this, so you're fucked. While also talking about how they hate cancel culture. And it's the exact same attitude as Republicans crying about fucking cancel culture and censorship and then straight up doing fucking anti-CRT legislation. That's actual censorship, dude.
Kind of quotes those people are invoking to accomplish such a ghoulish thing.
Not only does the right do it more frequently than the left does it, they do it more successfully than the left does it because they actually care about advancing their fucking legislative agenda, okay? Liberals just fucking cry. All liberals do is cry. They piss, they shit, and they fart in their fucking pants, and they cry all goddamn day long. Republicans cry too, but then the actual Republican politicians and the legislators actually follow through on their crying, pissing, shitting, farting, okay? That's it. The do-nothing Democrats don't actually get away with any sort of like serious censorship, okay? That's precisely why Republicans that are more successful at both propagandizing and also acting out their legislative desires will be able to, one, successfully implement this attitude that like it's actually the liberals that are censorious. They love doing fucking censorship. They're the best at censorship. But then turn around and quite literally ban books all the time. Even throughout the 2016, 2014, 2015, like Obama era, Republicans that were very effectively spreading the propaganda that it's just like a liberal thing, it's a leftist thing to do cancel culture, were able to successfully cancel books throughout that entire time. They were the ones who were mainly making sure certain books cannot be fucking read. As they did in the past about evolution, as they did in the past about stem cell research, as they did and continue to do today about CRT and LGBT and queer books. That's it.
Thing.
We're trying so hard to live up to those immortal words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who implored us to be better than we are, to judge one another based on the content of our character and not the color of our skin.
Like, I'm sorry. I know it triggers the fuck out of you if you're like a conservative dude and you hear someone who you thought always was like a libtard or whatever. So in your mind, I'm like quite literally the Mr. Canceler, like the #1 canceler. But here, take this pill, okay? It's a hard to swallow pill. Have it. You love cancel culture in the exact same way that those fucking blue-haired SJWs do, okay? You love it. You live for it. You love it when your side is doing it. To the liberals, you love it. It's the most engaging, entertaining team sport that you can ever have, okay? Take it. You are no different than the blue-haired SJW. The only difference is that, like, you know, you don't have blue hair. That's it. You fucking shriek way harder. And ultimately, at least a blue-haired SJW is like advocating for shit that, you know, impacts their life personally, right? A lot of times they're fucking emotional, but they're emotional for a good reason. They're emotional because, like, you know, people are attacking her for being gay. You are just triggered because, you know, people are learning about Black history in schools. That doesn't touch you. That doesn't hurt you. That doesn't harm you.
And so let me be clear. Let me be clear. On day one, we will not have political agendas in the classroom, and I will ban critical race theory.
Yummy, yummy, yum. What a surprise. That was, of course, the newly inaugurated governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, who ironically assumed office on MLK's actual birthday just 2 days ago on January 15th. Youngkin won the governor's race in part by hyping the manufactured hysteria over critical race theory. And not to be outdone, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has taken things even further and introduced, big eye roll incoming, the Stop Woke Act, allowing parents to sue over the teaching of critical race theory in schools. And how did he unveil this new bill? You guessed it, he also invoked the words of Martin Luther King.
You think about what MLK stood for. He said he didn't want people judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. You listen to some of these people nowadays, they don't talk about that.
Boy, I kind of fucking hate that. The sadistic cynicism of conservatives quoting MLK to justify a ban on the supposed teaching of critical race theory in schools.
Which will ban MLK from schools. Like, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They know they're hypocritical. It doesn't fucking matter. So please, I beg of you, all of these motherfuckers in the chat that like actually think these dudes are being serious, they are not, okay? They know what they're doing. Most of them know what they're doing, or they're too stupid to understand that they're being duped, okay? There's just no reason to, like, seriously engage in these motherfuckers. Just humiliate them. The only reason to ever debate a dude like that, who is very clearly engaging in this, like, incredibly bad faith argument, an incredibly bad faith interpretation of, like, MLK's legacy, is just to vilify them, humiliate them ritualistically, embarrass them in front of their friends and family, to a degree where, like, it's so horrible for them to show face ever again. Okay? That's it. And you do that so you feel better about yourself. Okay? No other reason. You're not going to be able to debate them into legitimately changing their point of view. At that stage, either they're too fucking stupid that they've been duped by people like Ron DeSantis, and, you know, it's going to be pretty hard to shake that baked-in fucking baked-in white supremacist attitude, okay? Or they're doing it cynically.
Schools can't be overstated as a supervillain level hate fucking of the American soul. You know, especially considering that MLK was one of the major influences for CRT in the first place. It is the political equivalent of beating someone with their own severed arm. A brazen act of racism that every American should see right through, except, you know, America. And the appropriation of MLK's words to push the anti-CRT agenda is not isolated to just these two behemoth stains. Once and future President Donald Trump stated, critical race theory is a Marxist doctrine that rejects the vision of Martin Luther King Jr. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said, critical race theory goes against everything Martin Luther King has ever told us. Don't judge us by the color of our skin, and now they're embracing it. That's right, Kevin. That one sentence is everything Martin Luther King ever told us. It's their mantra. They love it. And f*** it. They f*** the words from every position. This one part of a single speech, always used for some variation of the idea that we shouldn't go out of.
Is there a reason they're trying to ban CRT in school because they're trying to keep away the Smash Pros to protect the children? What? Oh. Good one.
Our way to give anyone special treatment, because that's what MLK wanted, they shout, internally praying that no one actually remembers the specifics of what the civil rights leader believed in, or the fact that he explicitly addressed this in the fourth and final book he wrote before he was assassinated, writing, The white liberal must affirm that absolute justice for the Negro simply means, in the Aristotelian sense, that the Negro must have his due. There is nothing abstract about this. It is as concrete as having a good job, a good education, a decent house, and a share of power. It is, however, important to understand that giving a man his due may often mean giving him special treatment. Ah, geez, what about the content of the character and all of that? How can you possibly justify giving a specific race of people?
I can't believe Cody Johnson is doing CRT right here. This is called critical race theory. Critical race theory is when you move beyond the only fucking thing that conservatives love to talk about with respect to MLK, which is the color of the skin content of the character argument. Anything outside of that would be considered critical race theory, and Martin Luther King would be very upset at you for even discussing it. He would hate if you were to talk about anything other than the bastardized singular quote that you have of him that you use once a year, every year.
Special treatment. Well, he goes on to say, a society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years must now do something special for him in order to equip him to compete on a just and equal basis. Do a Cody a favor. Anytime you see some reactionary ghoul quote MLK in an effort to prevent the honest teaching of our history, or the notion of equity in public policy, or the idea that we might prioritize vaccine distribution to vulnerable populations, please, politely and non-violently, shove this quote in their faces, print it out and hide it under their pillows after breaking into their homes, serve them food with it written on the plate after spitting in their food, paint it on their pets and then take their pets. They don't deserve pets. Also non-toxic.
What's so cynical about this is the fact that all the boomers were alive and sentient, young adults when MLK was leading the civil rights movement. Like, this isn't some prehistoric legend. He existed in the lifetimes of so many in the country. Yes. Yeah, our president. Like, he was around, you know. Most of Congress was around and alive. Some of them were already in politics at that time.
Toxic paint.
Beginning their careers.
Bombard them with this quote until they are forced to, at minimum, admit that what they really feel is this.
And yes, Martin Luther King Jr. was a mixed bag when it came to
What? Martin Luther King Jr. is a mixed bag? Also, what is this? What's this background?
this stuff.
Because the idea that King didn't want special treatment, or for America to teach the systemic racism in this country, or wanted to encourage bootstraps pulling, or any of these other things we hear from the GOP.
Charlie Kirk be like, MLK was a mixed bag, bro.
And I think
love
we've
that.
pretty much proven that here. And boy, that sure makes you wonder, what else are they lying about? What are some of the other things MLK stood for that perhaps the GOP loves to downplay? We should probably explore that in due time, like in the time it takes to watch these neat ads. Oh boy, ads! MLK loved ads, you guys. He with the GOP today, or also the entire country when MLK was alive. Because despite the reverence we now hold for Martin Luther King Jr., it turns out that in his time, he was an extremely controversial figure. In fact, at the time of his death, aka assassination, MLK had a 75% disapproval rating. That is higher than this fascist smudge at any time during his presidency. And you know, this guy's incompetence led to the unnecessary deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, and he nearly ended democracy in America. Whoops! Trump once got on Air Force One with paper glued to his shoe, and yet still was more popular than King was. And when it comes right down to it, many conservatives disapprove of his most lauded accomplishments to this day. Through his efforts, MLK was largely responsible for pushing through one of the most significant pieces of legislation in American history, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It also banned private businesses that serve the public from discrimination, and it's that provision that libertarians like Senator Rand Paul can't quite bring themselves to accept.
If there was a private business, say in Louisville, say somewhere in your home state, that wanted to not serve black patrons or wanted to not serve gay patrons or somebody else on the basis of their on the basis of a characteristic that they decided they didn't like as a private business owner, would you think that they had a legal right to do so, to put up a "Blacks Not Served Here" sign?
Well, the interesting thing is, you know, you look back to the 1950s and 1960s at the problems we faced. There were incredible
This dude's dad also straight up said that the Civil Rights Act is a violation. Ben Shapiro also said the Civil Rights Act is unjustifiable and unconstitutional. For the record, it is the exact same. Like, his dad said this as well. Ben Shapiro said this. Libertarians who aren't really libertarians love saying the government should never be able to compel free enterprise. You know, it's bad, they say.
Incredible problems. You know, the problems had to do with mostly with voting. They had to do with schools. They had to do with public housing. And so this is what the civil rights largely addressed, and all things that I largely agree with.
But what about private businesses? I mean, I don't want to be badgering you on this, but I do want an answer. Do you think that a private business has a right to say we don't serve black people?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of any discrimination of any form. I would never belong to any club that excluded anybody for race. We still do have private clubs in America that can discriminate based on race. But I think what's important about this debate is not getting into any specific gotcha on this, but asking the question, what about freedom of speech? Should we limit speech from people we find abhorrent? Should we limit racist from speech?
Rand Paul had the freedom to catch these hands from his neighbor. That was pretty funny.
Speaking. I don't want to be associated with those people, but I also don't want to limit their speech in any way, in the sense that we tolerate boorish and uncivilized behavior because that's one of the things freedom requires.
And nice sidestep, Rand. Sure seems like you're cool with letting businesses discriminate based on race. But hey, that's what freedom requires, folks. The ability for the soul gas.
Rand Paul's right. Dude, no, he's not, dude. No, okay, he's not. Thank God people like you were mostly just fucking... people like you or people that have attitudes like you are dead now, thankfully, okay? You can try to, like, revitalize that movement as best as you can, but most of you died. How? Well, you know, people usually die after the age of 85 to 90, okay? What an idiotic fucking thing. Let me explain that the businesses should be able to have the right to discriminate towards black people. Please explain to me why the civil rights movement was actually bad, chatter. Debate away the civil rights movement, dude. Let's hear it, motherfucker. Go on. This is precisely why I say that the pussy-ass Republican Party did not go far enough in the abolition of slavery. They should have fucking razed the entirety of the South. They should have murdered every slave owner straight up, lined them up against the fucking wall, and killed every single American slave owner. Every single one. It is so stupid. You will never be able to fucking fix the permanent white supremacist attitudes that have been baked into all of our institutions because you will never take the action necessary. It is just the 100% truest statement. You cannot solve this problem when motherfuckers who still were like, yeah, I think, you know, it was cool and fine that we did the slavery thing, okay? When you are offering restitution to those guys after you fucking handed them the largest L of all time, they're going to keep running this shit. They are. But the issue is, liberal white abolitionists, okay, abso-fucking-lutely were like, oh, I don't know, this Reconstruction project is not working well enough for us. I am a little afraid right now. I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of chaos in the South. Maybe we should just like do everything we can to help those white capital owners. If you fight power of power, somebody loses. If you truly want humanity as a whole to succeed, you should love and accept people for who for who they are? What? You said Rand Paul is right because he is standing in opposition. He's saying that, you know, businesses should be able to discriminate towards races. No, man. No. They shouldn't. Like, what do you think, like, hugging and kissing, Southern slave owners and Confederate generals was going to fucking win the Civil War? Is that what you think? Why do people always say, like, hey, man, in order to defeat racism, you just got to accept it? Like, if you want to defeat racist people, you just have to hug and kiss them. And also accept everything they do and say and love them. No. That's not how that works, man. Sometimes people die, okay? There is no hugging and kissing slave owners, okay? You just got to kill them. And they did, but just not enough. That was the problem. Same with Nazis. The USSR's approach to the spreading of Nazi ideology was better than the Western one. You know?
Gas station or motel on the highway to say, sorry, we don't serve your kind here. Or the only cantina in town.
Why calm down, Hasan? Like, nothing I'm saying is fucking, like, what? You think people are going to cancel me for saying that, like, Abraham Lincoln that they didn't kill enough slave owners? Like, people are going to get mad at me for that? Really? That's what you're going to say? Like, people are going to be like, wow, I can't believe this dude is saying that not enough slave owners were murdered in the South. It is an incredibly reasonable fucking take, in my opinion. John Brown did nothing wrong.
To say, we don't serve their kind here. Pretty darn telling that we can frame that as being about freedom. Freedom for whom exactly, Rand? But at least Rand Paul has some credibility on voting rights, something the vast majority of the party he belongs to can't even say. Because one of the other victories that MLK played a significant role in achieving was the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a law that aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from...
Fresher Eugen, isn't abolishing their social relations and their power enough? I don't know, man. Ask yourself, has it been enough? Did it work? No. So obviously, we are living in the example, the clear-cut example, that it wasn't enough to just abolish their social relations and their power. Also, we didn't even fucking abolish their power. So you're wrong on that front, too. The only thing you did was, like, trigger them, you know, by allowing, like, some black Republicans to take, like, marginal power, fractional power every now and then, while simultaneously, you know, allowing a new social caste system to take the place of the prior caste system that was codified, okay, which it didn't even take too long to also codify the new social caste system with Jim Crow laws anyway. And then the government also gave money to the slave owners, too. They appeased them. They hugged them. They kissed them. It is precisely the fault. Like, that is exactly what I'm saying. When you hug, kiss, and you know, normalize slave ownership and those who actually got fucking obliterated,
sorry, Ajahn, you radicalized.
You're not going to win. You're not going to win the ideological battle. It is insidious.
President 2028.
exercising their right to vote as guaranteed under the 15th Amendment to the U.S., a law that, coincidentally, has been gutted by conservative justices on the Supreme Court twice. First, in 2013, when the Supreme Court overturned the pre-clearance provision in the...
By the way, this is precisely why we still unfortunately need... this is why it's laughable when people say, oh, dude, like, what do you mean, the Voting Rights Act? Like, we don't need that. Or, the civil rights, like, movement is silly. Like, you should not be able to compel businesses to do whatever. This is what happens in America when the Supreme Court acts on that desire, okay? The entire purpose of this, okay? The entire purpose of the Voting Rights Act, for most of you that probably know this, but maybe some of you don't, which is really important for this day and age right now, is to fucking literally slap local and state governments that consistently and continuously stop black people from voting, okay, by many different methods of voter suppression, okay? It is the federal control in the most like reductive way that I can describe it to you, in the easiest way to understand. It is basically just the federal government going, hitting you in the head and going, no, you have to keep letting black people vote. That's it. That is precisely what this is. But of course, the exact same arguments that like Rand Paul and numerous others actually try to, push against, forcing businesses to serve black people is the exact same reason why this was completely destroyed. Okay. The Voting Rights Act was gutted because they said, well, I mean, these states, do we even need this anymore? I mean, come on, racism is over. There's no reason to, federally make sure that states won't act out of pocket and stop black people from voting. Come on, no one would do that. Just kidding. That's precisely what they immediately did.
Civil Rights Act, which required certain jurisdictions with a history of racial discrimination in voting to get approval from the DOJ when enacting new voting laws. In her dissent, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that throwing out preclearance when it has worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. Great point, RBG. Still wish you'd retired when you had the chance. That would have been neat. But for his part, conservative Justice Antonin Scalia of Antonin Scalia Retire Bitch fame referred to the law as a racial entitlement. That's right. He referred to a law designed to protect
a law that allows black people to vote, okay? A law that was passed so that governments that historically have done everything they can to stop black people from voting, okay, a law that makes them, forces those governments to seek pre-clearance with the Department of Justice. That law is entitlement, because if you're black, voting is a racial entitlement. You are not allowed to vote in the eyes of Antonin Scalia, okay? You are not. It's just you're entitled for wanting to.
The right of black people to vote, a right which had up to that point been aggressively fought against through tactics like poll taxes, literacy tests, quizzes about how many fucking jelly beans are in a jar, and domestic terror and mass murder. He referred to that protection as a racial entitlement. And since this provision was gutted, around 24 states have passed restrictive voting laws, including 10 laws that would have needed that federal approval. And in the 2021 legislative sessions, lawmakers have introduced at least 440 restrictive bills in 49 states. So it seems that while many conservatives like to quote the one line of MLK, they don't actually agree with what he actually advocated for. Because again,
Antonin Scalia was unironically anti-gay marriage, and his dissenting opinion was saying that, like, if gay marriage is allowed, then it's a slippery slope into men marrying dogs. So that guy was a Supreme Court justice, and one that is still cherished often and celebrated by Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself, rest in piss, and all these other liberals as well. Okay? Yep, that's right, baby. Antonin Scalia, if you've ever taken a constitutional law class, you already know what I'm fucking talking about. Antonin Scalia actually wrote a dissent against gay marriage, where he said, if we allow men to marry men, then what is to stop them from marrying dogs? That's right.
America loves propping these people up without actually respecting their message. We make them bumper stickers and tattoos.
Is RGB really that bad? I mean, she sucked, of course. I mean, she's not great. No, obviously. She's like 700-year-old fossil, okay? So clearly, she's not great. I'm just saying in this particular instance that she was bad because she also said Antonin Scalia was a dear friend.
Like they're Bugs Bunny or Jesus.
Like, I'm sorry, if someone is like So if someone is comparing gay marriage to bestiality, then you can't say they're a good friend. I'm sorry, fuck that person, okay? That's like, maybe that is a good place to be like, nah, rest in piss. I'm glad that motherfucker died about Antonin Scalia when he did. You know what I mean? You can't fucking do that. You can't like turn around and be like, you know, we had our disagreements, but I consider him to be a dear friend. It's like, well, you suck then, okay? You are a fucking bad person too.
Both of whom died for us and came back. And I say America specifically, because let's certainly not let liberals off the hook. You might have noticed that MLK's quote about how special treatment may be required to make up for the injustices of the past started out with a critique of the white liberal. Yes, it turns out that MLK had a lot to say about the white liberal and the white moderate. There is a lot that Dr. King asked.
This is one of my favorite King quotes of all time, one that I've used many, many times over, which ironically people will literally fail to understand. This is probably the number one quote that that the people that it's directed against misunderstand it.
Of a lot of people. And I think on this day meant to celebrate him, the question we need to ponder is, what exactly is Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy? What should it be? And are we truly living up to it? And who better to answer that question than a guy who looks like me? Because the conventional narrative tends to go from his I Have a Dream speech and the legislative accomplishments of the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act
3000
straight to his assassination. But MLK actually had a lot to say in the intervening years that we don't actually talk that much about. For starters, what did he think about the progress that had been made towards achieving his dream?
I must confess that
odd take that you can't be friends with people you disagree with. Hey, dumbass, I'm friends with plenty of people that I disagree with. That's entirely separate than someone who unironically is so homophobic that they say a man fucking another man is akin to a man fucking a dog. Would you be able to be friends with someone who is so racist that they think race mixing is the same as like a man having sex with a beast or an animal?
Hasanabi.
There are plenty of people who think that. As a matter of fact, that was the same exact argument launched against miscegenation back in the day. Okay? Do you consider all of those to be small disagreements? If that's a small disagreement, that says a lot about you, which proves my point. My point is that if you think that something that is a gigantic disagreement like that is a small one, then you are a bad person. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's precisely what I was saying about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm saying she's a bad person because she considered that to be a small disagreement.
That dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future.
Funny you can say RGB was a bad person because who she said her friends were. Yeah, you are friends with Crotchy, someone who lied about getting vaccinated. People you said should be locked up. Yeah, she should have gone to jail for it, but she's already vaccinated, so there's nothing you could do about that. If you unironically think that that is a fucking solid comparison between someone who actually had the power to deny gay people the civil liberty of marriage to a person that lied, okay? To a person that lied about having a fucking vaccine when vaccines were not they were not being distributed yet. I don't know what to tell you, okay? But yes, she should have gone to jail for it all the same. I agree. I think that an Instagram model with big booba is the same as a Supreme Court justice with a lifetime appointment. I am a Twitch watcher.
Future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and
it was a test, not a vaccine, but close enough. I don't know what the
over
fuck
the
it was.
last few months, I've gone.
Oh, it was a test that she faked. What? It was she faked a test after getting vaxxed. Who cares? Wait, I don't know if that. You guys remember this better than I do. I don't even know what the fuck it was.
Such an agonizing moment, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go.
A long, long way to go in a galaxy far, far away. That's 3 Star Wars references for you sick freaks. But geez, folks, I don't think it's daring to say that this quote still applies today, just like 50 some odd years later. You might have noticed that I started this video noting that today we rightfully celebrate the life and legacy of the civil rights leader who utilized nonviolent protests to help bring about an end to explicit legal segregation in America. Wow, I was so young back then. So full of hope. Less beard. Now, I use the words explicit legal segregation for a reason, because unfortunately, even though explicit legal segregation is no longer allowed, schools and neighborhoods are more segregated today than they were in the 1960s. The racial wealth gap between white people and black people is the same today as it was when MLK was assassinated. Seems like we continue to have a long way to go to get to that dream he was talking about. And maybe the reason that these inequalities persist is because we didn't really listen to what MLK actually had to say.
It is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages. America's opportunity to help bridge the gulf between the haves and the have-nots. And the question is whether America will do it. There's nothing new about poverty. What is new is that we now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty. The real question is whether we have the will. Now we are dealing with issues that cannot be solved without the nation spending billions of dollars and undergoing a radical redistribution of economic power.
Oh, hey, there's that word, redistributionism. Man, it seems like there are very few politicians today that promote a vision as radical as the one MLK advocated for in the 1960s, perhaps because he was rightfully challenging the very foundation of this country, something that neither Republicans or Democrats like to challenge. In fact, in his quest for absolute justice, as early as 1951, when MLK was in his early 20s, he wrote a note.
I don't know, man. Sounds like a fucking commie, dude. Maybe they should have banned him. We should probably cancel him, dude. Liberals in the chat be like, maybe the FBI was right about him being a womanizer.
That took on America's sacred system of capitalism itself. I am convinced that capitalism has seen its best days in America, and not only in America, but in the entire world. It is a well-known fact that no social institution can survive when it has outlived its usefulness. This, capitalism has done. It has failed to meet the needs of the masses. Hey! Weird that politicians don't quote that part of him. Seems like maybe they want us to forget about all that stuff, or how aspects of King's thinking may have—
Dude, people literally fucking say Jesus Christ is a capitalist, okay? Like, it doesn't matter. That's like a person who is supposed to be like this deity, this like person who built his entire story around this mythical figure that built our entire story around like helping others unconditionally. Okay, like Republicans say he's a capitalist. It's done. Who is Martin Luther King in comparison to, you know, motherfucking Jesus? If they can do it to Jesus, they're gonna easily do it to Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? Like they make it seem like Jesus is a supply side economics Andy. They don't care. My point is they don't care.
Have been why FBI Domestic Intelligence Chief William Sullivan once wrote an urgent memo declaring King the most dangerous Negro in the U.S., stating, "We must mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro of the future in this nation from the standpoint of communism, the Negro, and national security."
Yep.
Gee whizzers, this whole American government jazz.
And that is actually a perfect fucking circle back to the original thing that started me. That made me angry this morning when we started, which was like, this is why the FBI lied about MLK, and you're still advocating and regurgitating that same propaganda that they admit that they
wasn't too
disseminated.
keen on this King fellow. This may have been why MLK was relentlessly wiretapped and surveilled by the FBI until his death, aka assassination. This may have been why the FBI wrote a letter to MLK, blackmailing him and urging him to commit suicide, writing, "There is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is."
You're being hypocrite. Stop being a hypocrite. This man is saying the N-word. You're being hypocrite because he said N-word and he is white. Stalin was a socialist, but had some anarchy ideals as well.
Jesus was
What?
Bernie Sanders, a Jewish socialist. Based.
My man says Stalin had some anarchist ideals. Love that.
You have just 34 days. You are done. There is but one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is bared to the nation. Ah, but that's the old FBI. They smoked cigarettes and murdered aliens and junk. They wouldn't heavily surveil a civil rights movement today, right? Do we have an article about how they totally did that to the Black Lives Matter movement? I bet we do. Yeah, we do. There's the article about that. But it wasn't just King's critique of capitalism that made him the most dangerous Negro in the US, according to the federal government. Because MLK also stated in 1967 that the evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and racism. And so the thing that really put MLK in the hot seat was his courageous and wildly unpopular stance against the Vietnam War, and against war and militarism in general, or I guess...
Oh, yeah, funny enough.
...was his...
It's like funny enough that when you're an anti-imperialist, okay, when you're against American imperialism, the number one bipartisan thing that every American believes, American exceptionalism and American imperialism, all of a sudden even liberals start coming after you and say, no, no, no.
Courageous and wildly unpopular stance against the Vietnam War, and against war and militarism in general, or I guess he loved it, according to the Pentagon. And this stance...
It's almost like he's not perfect. Wait, what? Do you think that I think that that is not, that's an imperfection? Because you are very far removed from whatever circles you are in if you think that I would ever say that that is an imperfection for MLK.
Stance on Vietnam,
one of the best parts,
that I and other cool people would argue has been proven correct upon even the lightest historical examination. Like, I think even Operation Dumbo Drop comes down on it, but also, who cares if it does?
When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. There is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction, and it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence.
And MLK's stance against the war is not the only example where he was ahead of his time.
Can you explain why Biden wants South Carolina's black vote so heavily when he was so racist while Bernie literally marched with MLK? I don't know if you're like looking for a clip here or something, but you know, people vote in incredibly dumb ways. It's just the unfortunate reality. Like, that is just how it is. People did not believe that Bernie Sanders was going to be able to solve the number one problem that they had, which was defeating Donald Trump. Why did they believe that? Because their community leaders told them. Their community leaders that work alongside the Democratic Party. The media told them that Bernie Sanders was not electable. That's it. 20% of voters in the United States of America actually vote on ideological lines. 80% of voters, on the other hand, vote on team and partisan lines. That's it. They vote Democrat because they're Democrat. They vote Democrat and do whatever Democrats do because other Democrats have told them. That's it. The media that was backing Joe Biden and definitely was overtly and expressly anti-Bernie Sanders and quite literally said things along the lines of like Bernie Sanders is going to be a Nazi, okay, similar to a Nazi. That was MSNBC, by the way, not Fox News. Then did everything they can to portray Biden as like, you know, Barack Obama's best friend, yada, yada, yada. Jim Clyburn, incredibly important figure in the South, specifically in South Carolina, also promoted Joe Biden, and that's why people voted for him over Bernie Sanders. That's it.
King advocated for a federal jobs guarantee and a guaranteed income, reparations, and, this is important, a massive government effort to entirely eliminate poverty. In fact, the effort he was engaged in when he was assassinated was marching with striking sanitation workers in support of a diverse coalition of people fighting for better working conditions, as a part of the Poor People's Campaign for economic and racial justice. He even had an extremely relevant view of the filibuster.
I think the tragedy is that we have a Congress with a Senate that has a minority of misguided senators who will use the filibuster to keep the majority of people from even voting.
And this is literally the same dynamic that is currently at play with the legislative battle.
He was 100% correct, by the way. Kirsten Sinema would be like, sweaty, Martin, sorry, but you're stoking racial divisions in this country right now, and I don't like that. You're being quite divisive, and I don't like that.
Battle over the John Lewis Voting Rights
Can you please
Act.
stop?
Now, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has vowed to take up filibuster changes by MLK Day if the voting rights bill is blocked. So I guess let me know in the comments if that effort has been successful. I have a pretty good guess on whether or not it has been. Also, like and subscribe, and also I probably won't read the comment. My point is that the political stances that MLK took in the 1960s are more progressive than the vast majority of Democratic leaders today. And even then, MLK understood that the biggest stumbling block to achieving absolute equality was the very people that proclaimed to align with his vision.
I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. Didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes. But they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed.
Yup. It's the same exact attitude that requires that a black person that says, like, you know, white people need to stop hating black people has to follow up with and black people should be nicer to white people as well. You know, it's just always the same. Because people are more angry at black people rising up and demanding equality than they are against the unjustifiable racial violence that they're subjected to. Whether it be in the hands of the state, which is a monopoly on violence, or in the hands of other paramilitary groups.
To genuine equality
when the state's not
for
enough.
Negroes. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we're getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
And so, while President Joe Biden may claim that he is committed to racial equality, he has still refused to cancel student debt, which would significantly narrow the racial wealth gap, something he could do today, this day, with a stroke of a pen. Or not, depending on who your favorite blogger is. In fact, after the largest sustained protest movement in American history, the Black Lives Matter movement in the summer of 2020, very little lasting concrete action from our government has taken place to achieve genuine racial equality. This dynamic is probably why MLK wrote his famous letter from a Birmingham jail in 1963, which reads, "I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice."
Dude, he was being so divisive when he said this. Like, how is he going to get people to go out and vote for the Democratic Party if he does this? You know what I mean? It's just so divisive to talk about, you know, liberals that actually don't want to immediately kill black people on sight in the same way that Republicans do, but, you know, still harbor the exact same kind of racial resentments that black people have. It's so fucked up. It's so divisive. No.
Who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Who constantly says...
Gross generalization. That's another... Yeah. Oh, man, MLK with a gross generalization.
...says, "I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action." Who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom. Who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. He's talking about you, Joe. Both of you Joes, and probably a bunch of other people too. Definitely, probably, absolutely. And so while the right-wing appropriation of MLK is more obviously and blatantly disgusting, neither political party is doing a particularly good job of living up to King's legacy. And it remains such a tragedy to this day that he was taken from the world by some asshole with a gun, though not necessarily the one that we've been led to believe. And, at least according to the jury in a civil trial in Coretta King, a conspiracy that involved the mafia, local, state, and federal government agencies. So we never got the chance to see what MLK would think about Ronald Reagan's presidency, or mass incarceration, or Black Lives Matter, or Colin Kaepernick, or Donald Trump, or The Matrix. Maybe he would have loved The Matrix, we don't know, but we could have. If MLK were alive today, he would have been 93 years old, 7 years younger than Betty White, and it is a damn shame we haven't had his wisdom to rely on all of these years. We don't know what he would have said or thought about events over the last 50 plus years, but we do know what he did say while he was still here. And so the first step towards honoring Martin Luther King's legacy is to stop whitewashing it. But for now, I will leave you with this, a portion of the final speech MLK gave before he was assassinated.
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over. And I've seen...
I see what you mean by this video being really good. The recontextualization that some more news is doing here just pulled me out of my 20 years of education that has conditioned me to think of segregated lunch counters as just pure evil that would inevitably be legislated away by any moral society, and instead as a small amount of progress as companies posting Black Lives Matter today. That's exactly what it is. Sorry I paused it, but it is important to understand. This is a perfect summarization of what MLK was talking about prior in the previous quote, which is, these are bullshit concessions offered to people who understandably are angry about the shitty hand that they've been dealt. And oftentimes people will just point to that and go, shut the fuck up. Come on. What do you mean? And liberals do that as well. And it's not just Republicans. Liberals will literally point to the minor concessions that black people got to be like, what more do you want? I mean, chill the fuck out.
The promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
So rest in power, Reverend Dr. Martin